I call the honourable member Timothy McIndoe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So does my mother when I'm in trouble. May I begin, as other speakers have done, in congratulating Leo Afamulia Asanati Lole Taylor in having her private member's bill drawn and brought to the House. It is an exciting time. I have to say to Mrs. Lole Taylor that I'm a little bit jealous, as I've been here longer than she has. I too have a bill in the private member's ballot. It's never looked like being drawn. If it is, it will make a significant difference, I think, to dealing with an aspect of criminal behaviour in our community. But anyway, I won't be churlish. I congratulate her. And I want to acknowledge Dennis O'Rourke, who mentioned at the start of his address that National has had a focus since we came into office on building a safer New Zealand. It has, after all, been one of our key better public service targets. We've had a huge number of justice-related and criminal justice-related measures that have come through the Parliament, and we are seeing results with a lower crime rate. In fact, crime is at its lowest level in 30 years, and that's a fantastic achievement. Youth crime is down significantly, and I think that Mrs. Lole Taylor is bringing something forward that is a thoughtful contribution, perhaps, to making another step in the right direction. Because I hear Mr. Little chirping away, and he needs to be reminded that before we came into office in 2008, crime was increasing, gangs were on the rampage, our courts were overcrowded, our prisons were particularly overcrowded and had a chronic shortage of beds, and I'm giving him all the facts. He doesn't like it. He won't correct me because he knows that I'm right. He will simply continue to barrack. Well, that's fine. I expect that sort of fairly churlish behaviour, but I'll just carry on. In recent times, we've put 600 extra frontline police on the beat. That's a good measure. We've got a 70% increase in police foot patrols that were as of the end of last year. That's a fantastic achievement, and these are some of the reasons why we're getting these major improvements. And I have no doubt that these will continue, and we can't, at any stage, we can't let up on our focus. So this particular bill amends the Sentencing Act, and as I'm one of the final speakers, it may be that some people have only just tuned in. It will amend the Sentencing Act to make criminal offending in the presence of a minor an aggravating factor at sentencing. Where the offending endangers or exposes a minor to potential adverse effects from that offending, the sentence must reflect this. And I'm sure we all shudder at the prospect of children being exposed either to violent crime or perhaps being brought up in a P-lab or seeing some appalling gang activity, and what an appalling impact that must be having on these children. There is sadly huge evidence that children who grow up in that sort of environment go on to be at risk of committing that sort of criminal activity themselves, and therefore everything that we can do to try to prevent that from happening has to be a good thing. I do, however, want to reassure the public who may be listening that the presence of a child and the risk of harm to them are already aggravating factors that can be taken into account by the courts in sentencing, even though they're not specifically listed at the moment in the Sentencing Act. And furthermore, where the offending has involved the presence of children alongside the manufacture of drugs, offenders have also already been charged with neglect offences, and so it should be, because, as I say, the prospect of this happening is so damaging for those children. So, as has been indicated by my colleagues, National is supporting this bill at first reading so that it can go to Select Committee, so that submissions can be made on it and it can be given due attention. Colleagues have also mentioned the Children's Action Plan, and I'm a particular fan and advocate for that because it's part of dealing with the real problem we have with vulnerable children in our community growing up in some dreadful circumstances and being subjected to most appalling abuse. And sadly, we have one of the worst rates of child murder in the Western world. So, as I say, it's a passion of mine. I acknowledge all those who work in our communities to deal with that issue. And again, I hope that this bill will make another contribution in that direction, because although we've made some progress, there's still a long way to go. I was glad that Mrs. Lole Taylor acknowledged the late Brian Donnelly and the work that he did in this area, and I too echo that. He was a fine Member of Parliament. We know, Mr. Speaker, that a key to reducing crime long-term is to stop children from entering the criminal justice system. This is a bill that may well contribute to that end. It will, I'm sure, play a constructive role, and so for these reasons I too support its introduction and the fact that it should be sent to a select committee. It sounds from the way speakers have talked as if it will be. I again congratulate Mrs Lolly Taylor for her achievement, and I will follow the bill's progress through the select committee and beyond with interest.
Mr Speaker.
In reply, I call the honourable member Asanati